Claressa Shields is standing in front of a camera, laughing, calling another woman's children her stepkids, and somewhere in Atlanta a boxing promoter is refreshing the ticket sales page for the 9th time this morning, praying the numbers move before Saturday. That is where we are. That is the actual, factual, on-the-record temperature of this situation right now, days before the biggest fight of her life, and instead of talking about her opponent, instead of talking about her legacy, instead of talking about the belts, we are talking about whether or not Papoose'S other daughter, the one who is not Chanel, the one who has been noticeably, suspiciously, conveniently absent from every single photo op until this exact week, is now suddenly available for a family portrait. With the woman the internet has nicknamed the flip-flopper. And everything you have been told about the story, everything the little clip pages and the little blog captions have been framing this as, has been pointed at the wrong question. The question is not whether Claressa Shields is a stepmom. The question is not whether Papoose'S kids like her. The question is why a grown woman with a world title, with a Netflix documentary, with a legitimate Hall of Fame career already in motion, is out here in the year 2026 fighting for the title of second wife to a man who is not legally single, has not been legally single, and I am going to prove this to you in a minute, has no financial incentive to ever become legally single. And when we get to the part of this video where I break down exactly why Papoose'S cannot afford, literally cannot afford in the accounting sense of that word, to sign those divorce papers Remy Ma's attorney sent him, and I promise you we are getting there. We are getting all the way there. You're going to understand that Claressa is not the main character in her own love story. She is a line item. She is a promotional expense. She is the human equivalent of a pay-per-view undercard, and the co-main event is a marriage she is not invited to. So buckle in, because this one goes places. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the table properly, because there are people rolling into this video who only know Claressa Shields from the highlight reel, and there are people rolling into this video who have been watching this soap opera from the very first DM slide. And I owe both audiences the full picture. Claressa Shields, for anyone who has been living under a rock the size of Flint, Michigan, is arguably the greatest women's boxer of this generation. Two-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed at multiple weight classes, a woman who has been on the cover of everything, a woman who called herself the GWAT before the internet even had time to argue about it. That is her resume. That is what she built with her own two fists. Now enter Papoose'S, government name Shamil Mackey, longtime husband of Remy Ma, longtime fixture of Love and Hip Hop New York, a man whose actual music catalog you could not name 3 songs from if I put a gun to your head and gave you a Google search bar. This is a man whose entire public identity for the last decade and a half has been built on being married to Remy Ma. That is the brand. That is the resume. Golden love. Black love. The couch, the freestyles, the birthday tributes, the diamond anniversary rings, all of it. And then somewhere in the last year and change, the internet started noticing that Papoose'S and Claressa Shields were showing up in the same rooms, in the same comment sections, in the same suspiciously coordinated posts, and Remy Ma, who by the way had already been dropping breadcrumbs on her own podcast for months about her marriage being in a different chapter, did what Remy Ma always does. She let the streets do the math. And the math mattered. The text messages leaked. The alleged second phone request leaked. The alleged everything leaked. And Claressa, instead of ducking, instead of laying low, instead of saying nothing until at least the ink was dry on somebody's divorce, decided to run directly into the algorithm with her arms wide open, calling herself a stepmom, calling Papoose'S kids her stepkids, and calling everybody who has a problem with it a hater. The stakes here are not small. Musically, culturally, financially, reputationally, this is a 5-alarm situation. Musically, because Papoose'S is trying to relaunch a rap career that peaked on somebody else's couch. Culturally, because the hip-hop community has a very specific memory when it comes to women who insert themselves into other women's marriages, and Claressa is finding that out in real time. Financially, because a boxing card this size lives and dies on narrative momentum, and the narrative momentum right now is being spent on TikTok drama instead of tune-in intent. And reputationally, because a Hall of Fame boxer is currently one press conference away from being remembered less for her hooks and more for her hookups. And that tension, the tension between the resume she built and the reputation she is actively torching, is the tension this entire video is going to unpack, because there is a receipt trail here that changes how you see every single clip you have watched this week. So let us start with what is actually on the timeline, because I want to walk you through this piece by piece, verbally, exactly as I am reading it, so you can understand why the reaction has been what it has been. Piece number 1. Earlier this week, in a clip that has been circulating on every single hip-hop blog page from Live Papoose'S to the Neighborhood Talk, Claressa Shields is filmed on camera in what appears to be a promotional walk-and-talk moment, laughing and saying, and I am quoting her directly as it was captured, "He just showed up and he had kids. His kids is my stepkids." She then says, "These people call me what y'all call me, a flip-flopper," before turning to somebody off camera and saying, "You ready to blow this joint? Let's go. They be mad about nothing. Girl, it's my stepdaughter. What the F you want me to do about it?" That is the clip. That is the whole clip. And I want you to sit with the language for a second, because the language is doing a lot of work. "He just showed up and he had kids" is the sentence of a woman who is describing a man like he is a delivery driver who accidentally left a package on her porch. That is not the language of a woman who is bonded with these children. That is not the language of a woman who has been slowly, respectfully, appropriately introduced into a blended family. That is the language of a woman who is annoyed that the receipts of somebody else's marriage keep showing up in her comment section. Piece number 2. That very same week, Papoose'S other daughter, not Chanel, the one who runs the lip gloss brand, the other daughter, who up until this moment has been so absent from Claressa's content that half the internet forgot Papoose had more than one, suddenly materializes in the background of a group post. And the timing is not accidental. The timing is never accidental with these people. The fight is Saturday. The ticket sales are, according to multiple Boxing Beat reporters on X and multiple ticketing dashboards that have been screenshotted and passed around, allegedly underperforming for a card of this magnitude. And suddenly, right on cue, here comes the family portrait. Piece number 3. Chanel, the creative director daughter, the lip gloss daughter, has once again announced a product drop that is, and I am not making this up, conveniently timed to release the day of the fight. Same repackaged line, now allegedly rebranded as a luxury tier. Same audience, same algorithm, same free promotional real estate courtesy of her father's girlfriend's boxing career. Piece number 4, and this is the one that ties the bow on the whole surface layer. Papoose himself, in the middle of all of this, is still, in the year of our Lord 2026, pushing his own music. Throwback clips of his old mixtape run. Reminders of the Nas anthem. Reminders of the Ever Since You Left remix. Everything except an actual hit record. Everything except an actual streaming number that would justify the ego. And when you line these 4 pieces up next to each other on the same week, the Stepkids clip, the missing daughter's sudden appearance, the fight day lip gloss drop, and the husband's karaoke tour of his own back catalog, a very specific picture emerges. This is not a family. This is a marketing rollout. And every single person in the photograph has a product to move. And oh, do I have more. Because if you thought the surface stuff was bad, if you thought that his kids is my stepkids clip was the worst of it, sit down and buckle in, because we have not even gotten to the part where the actual hip-hop community started weighing in. And we have not even gotten to the part where I explain why Papoose has a financial reason, a documented, provable, follow the paperwork financial reason, to keep this circus running exactly the way it is running. To the Claressa fans in the comments right now typing, "You don't know her, you don't know their relationship, I hear you, I see you, and I am about to make your afternoon very uncomfortable, because the next section is not my opinion. The next section is what other people in the culture have already said out loud, on record, with their whole chest. Stay with me. Because here is where the cultural evidence starts stacking, and this is the layer that separates the people who are casually watching this from the people who actually understand what is happening. Cultural piece number 1. Cris Cyborg, yes, that Cris Cyborg, the MMA legend, a woman who has fought for actual world titles in actual cages, has publicly, on her own platform, referred to this entire situation as duck hunting season, which in the combat sports world is not a compliment. That is a shot. That is a peer, a woman at the same tier of athletic achievement Claressa claims to occupy, publicly signaling that Claressa is being played. When your peers in your own sport are cracking jokes about your love life instead of hyping your fight card, the locker room has already voted. Cultural piece number 2. The comment sections under every single major hip-hop blog post about this situation are, and I have scrolled them personally so you do not have to, overwhelmingly and consistently siding with Remy Ma. Not slightly. Not narrowly. Overwhelmingly. The Shade Room, Neighborhood Talk, Live Papoose'S, Hollywood Unlocked, pick your platform. The sentiment is the same. And the sentiment is not Team Remy because we like Remy. The sentiment is Team Remy because Claressa did too much. There is a very specific line a woman cannot cross in the culture, and that line is befriending the wife before you become the mistress. And Claressa, according to multiple screenshots that have been circulated across X and Instagram over the last several months, was allegedly in Remy Ma's DMs, allegedly called her sis, allegedly wished her happy birthday, allegedly was in the likes on Remy's posts on a consistent basis before the pivot. That is not just a mistress. That is a mistress with a paper trail of pretending to be a friend, and the culture does not forgive that. Cultural piece number 3. Every single major hip-hop podcast, and I am talking the ones with actual reach, not the ones that pop up for a week and vanish, has quietly stopped booking Papoose'S. Notice that. Notice the silence. A man who used to be a fixture on the freestyle circuit, a man who used to be a go-to guest for a certain kind of grown and married hip-hop conversation, has been ghosted by the circuit. Because the circuit knows. The circuit always knows before the audience does. Cultural piece number 4, and this one is the pivot point. Remy Ma herself has, on her own show and in her own interviews, referenced sending her husband divorce paperwork through her attorney, offering to cover his legal fees, and receiving no signature back. She has said this in public. This is not gossip. This is a woman who has told the audience, in her own voice, on her own platform, that she is trying to end the marriage and the other side will not let it end. Now, to be fair, and I want to be fair here, because I am not in the business of pretending nuance does not exist, there is a version of this story where Papoose'S is simply protecting himself in a divorce negotiation. That is a real thing men do. That is a real strategy attorneys advise. But here is where the counterargument collapses. If Papoose'S were simply protecting his financial position, he would have signed a version of the paperwork by now with revised terms. Attorneys negotiate. Divorces get finalized. Instead, what we have is total refusal. Not negotiation. Refusal. And refusal is not a legal strategy. Refusal is an emotional position. Refusal is a man who does not want the marriage to end for reasons that have nothing to do with money. And Claressa Shields, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist, the undisputed champion, is currently building a public identity around being the girlfriend of a man who is emotionally refusing to be single. That is not a flex. That is a warning sign flashing in neon lights, and the culture is watching her ignore it in real time. So put a pin in that emotional refusal, because now we are shifting gears, and this next part is not about who did what to whom. This next part is about the machine underneath all of it, and once you see the machine, you will never watch one of these clips the same way again. Because here is what nobody in the little reaction video circuit is willing to actually break down for you. This is not a love triangle. This is a business structure. And the business structure has 3 layers, and I am going to walk you through all 3 of them, slowly, so you understand exactly how the money moves and why the people in this story behave the way they behave. Layer 1 of the business structure is what I am going to call the algorithmic codependency. Remy Ma, as an artist, as a personality, as a media figure, occupies a very specific position in hip-hop that industry insiders sometimes refer to as the female algorithm. Meaning, when Remy releases something, moves something, announces something, the entire ecosystem, blogs, podcasts, playlists, TikTok sounds, Instagram reels lights up around her. She is one of the few women in her generation of hip-hop with that kind of gravitational pull. Papoose'S, historically, has ridden that pull. Every time Remy has a moment, he times a release, a comment, a freestyle, a soundbite. It is not a coincidence. It is a documented pattern going back years, and if you go back and cross-reference his release schedule with her major press cycles, the correlation is not subtle. Now here is where it gets interesting. Claressa Shields, in the last 12 months, has inherited that same playbook. Every time Remy Ma has a major announcement, a new single, a new tour date, a new interview, there is, allegedly and observably, a Claressa content spike within 48 hours. A new photo dump. A new interview clip. A new comment section appearance. This is not a woman living her life. This is a woman running a counter-programming schedule against her boyfriend's wife. Layer 2 of the business structure is what I am going to call the boxing revenue model, and this is the part that actually matters for Saturday. Women's boxing at Claressa's level does not pay the way men's boxing pays. The purses are smaller. The pay-per-view splits are smaller. The sponsorship pool is dramatically smaller. And I want you to notice something. Claressa Shields, arguably the greatest women's boxer of her generation, does not have, and I want you to really sit with this, she does not have a major Nike deal. She does not have a major Adidas deal. She does not have a major Gatorade, Powerade, Under Armour, Body Armor, degree, secret, or Band-Aid deal in the tier her resume should command. That is not an accident. That is not the sport being unfair, although the sport is unfair. That is a brand safety calculation. Brands look at an athlete's off-the-field behavior, the comment section fights, the married man optics, the reality TV adjacent drama, and they make a very cold, very quiet decision about whether that athlete is worth their reputational exposure. And the decision, based on the sponsorship board Claressa currently sits on, has already been made. So without the brand tier her resume should command, where does the money come from? It comes from the gate. It comes from the pay-per-view. It comes from the promotional heat around Fight Week. And the promotional heat around Fight Week is being generated right now, this week, by exactly the kind of content that keeps brands away from her in the first place. It is a perfect self-defeating loop. She has to generate drama to sell the ticket, and the drama she generates is the reason the sponsor money is not there to make the ticket unnecessary. That is a trap. That is a genuine, engineered financial trap, and she is walking straight into it with a smile on her face. Layer 3 of the business structure, and this is the deepest one, this is the one nobody wants to say out loud, is the marriage as an asset. Stay with me here, because this is the part that reframes everything. A long-term public marriage in hip-hop, especially one that has been branded, monetized, documented on reality television, and integrated into both partners' income streams, is not just a marriage. It is intellectual property. The Remy and Papoose'S brand, the Golden brand, the Black Love brand, the Couch Freestyle brand, all of that has commercial value. Appearance fees, cameo revenue, podcast bookings, endorsement synergy. And when one partner in that IP structure has demonstrably higher earning power than the other, and I do not think anyone credible would dispute that Remy Ma is the higher earner in that household, the lower earning partner has a very rational, very cold financial incentive to keep the IP intact. Signing divorce papers is not just an emotional decision. It is a valuation event. It is the moment the joint IP gets split, and the split is rarely favorable to the partner who is the plus one on the reality show. So when Remy's attorney sends the paperwork and Papoose'S does not sign, that is not confusion, that is not stalling, that is not indecision. That is a man protecting an asset. And Claressa Shields, the woman who thinks she is one signature away from being the second wife, is actually the leverage in a negotiation she is not even a party to. She is not the fiancé. She is the pressure. She is the thing Papoose'S is using to make Remy uncomfortable enough to renegotiate the terms of a marriage he never intended to actually leave. That is what is happening. That is the machine. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And here is the truth bomb, the one I have been walking you toward this entire video, the one that ties every clip, every comment, every leaked screenshot, every convenient family portrait into one clean, devastating picture. Claressa Shields is not Papoose'S girlfriend. Claressa Shields is Papoose'S negotiation strategy. That is the claim. That is the reveal. And I want you to understand exactly what I am saying and exactly what I am not saying, because this is the part where I choose my words with the most care. I am not saying Papoose'S does not have feelings for Claressa. I am not saying Claressa does not have feelings for Papoose'S. I am not even saying the relationship is fake in the sense that they are running some kind of coordinated scripted PR arrangement. What I am saying, what the evidence, the timeline, the refusal to sign, the algorithmic counter-programming, the Fight Week family rollout, the missing daughter's sudden reappearance, and the strategic absence of a divorce decree collectively point toward, is that the entire public architecture of this relationship serves one function, and that function is to keep Remy Ma in a state of unresolved marital limbo where the pressure to renegotiate on Papoose'S terms is maximized. Every stepmom comment is pressure. Every family photo is pressure. Every comment section appearance is pressure. Every his kids is my stepkids clip is pressure. And Claressa, the alleged girlfriend, the alleged future second wife, the woman who thinks she is winning, is the mechanism by which that pressure is applied. She is not the queen on the board. She is the pawn that is being pushed forward to threaten the queen. And here is the part that should genuinely, deeply concern anyone who has ever rooted for Claressa Shields as an athlete. Pawns do not get promoted in this game. Pawns get sacrificed. The moment Remy Ma either accepts the renegotiated terms or Papoose'S realizes she never will, the pressure mechanism is no longer needed. And the moment the pressure mechanism is no longer needed, the pressure mechanism is discarded. That is the pattern with married men who refuse to divorce. That is the pattern with public affairs that go on for years without resolution. That is the pattern, and Claressa, for all her intelligence in the ring, has not, based on her public behavior, shown any evidence that she understands the pattern applies to her. She thinks she is the exception. Every mistress thinks she is the exception. She is not the exception. She is the leverage. And when Papoose's no longer needs the leverage, and I promise you the day is coming, the same social media that manufactured her as the future Mrs. Mackey will manufacture her as the cautionary tale. And the very same clip pages that are running her stepmom quote today will be running her. How did she not see it coming quote next year? That is the truth. That is the whole truth. That is the truth the reaction channels are too scared to say out loud because they need her engagement more than they need their credibility. But I do not, so I am saying it. Meanwhile, on the other side of this entire circus, Remy Ma is winning. Not loudly. Not desperately. Not with a comment section campaign. She is winning the way champions always win, which is by continuing to be exactly who she is while the opposition exhausts itself trying to become her. Remy is still on her podcast. Remy is still touring. Remy is still being booked, being invited, being cited, being sampled, being remixed. Remy is still, at this very moment, the female algorithm in hip-hop that Papoose'S entire career quietly depends on for oxygen. She is not needed to respond directly. She is not needed to run a diss track. She is not needed to sit down for a tearful interview. She has let the truth do the work because the truth is patient and the truth is undefeated. And every single piece of evidence we have walked through in this video, the refusal to sign, the leaked text messages, the culture siding with her, her peers respecting her silence, her career continuing to move forward while Papoose'S stalls in a karaoke loop of his own past, every single piece points to the same conclusion. Remy Ma is not the woman who lost her husband. Remy Ma is the woman who is being expensively begged to renegotiate the terms of a marriage she has already outgrown. And while the flip-flopper is out here workshopping her stepmom auditions, and while the karaoke king is out here reminding the world that he was once on a hook with Nas, Remy Ma is doing what she has always done, which is winning without even being outside. That is the contrast. That is the one-liner. That is the sentence I want you to take with you when you close this video. And I want the Claressa fans in the comments to hear me clearly, because I have been rough on her in this video, and I owe her this much honesty. I want Claressa Shields to win. As an athlete, as a competitor, as a black woman in a sport that has systematically underpaid and undermarketed black women for generations, I want her to win. I want her to walk into that ring on Saturday and demolish her opponent and leave with every belt. But I also want her to wake up. I want her to see the machine she has walked into. I want her to understand that the man she is building a public identity around is not building one around her, and that the family she is claiming as her stepfamily has not claimed her back in any way that is not transactional. She is a champion. Champions do not settle for being leverage. And the day she realizes that is the day this entire story changes, and I hope, genuinely, that day comes before the pattern completes itself. But this is only the start, and I want to be specific about what is coming, because I do not do vague teases, and I do not do stay tuned for more filler. Number 1. The fight is Saturday, and regardless of what happens in the ring, the post-fight narrative is going to be the real event. Watch who is standing next to Claressa in the ring after the final bell. Watch who is missing. Watch which of Papoose'S children are photographed, which are not, and whether Chanel's lip gloss makes an appearance in the walkout. Every one of those details is a data point in the machine I just described, and I am going to be tracking them in real time. Number 2. Watch the divorce filing docket. Watch for any updated motion, any withdrawal, any change in representation on Papoose'S side. Because if the pressure mechanism I described is real, we are going to see a movement in that paperwork within the next 60 to 90 days, and I am going to be the first channel telling you the exact moment it happens. And number 3. The moment we have all been quietly waiting for. There is a specific interview, on a specific major hip-hop platform, that Remy Ma has reportedly been in conversations to sit down for, and if that sit-down happens the way multiple industry chatter threads have suggested it might, everything we talked about in this video is going to look like the appetizer. Remy has been patient. Remy has been quiet. Remy has been playing the long game. But the long game has a checkmate move, and when she makes it, I am going to be right here breaking it down frame by frame. And speaking of frame by frame, the next video, the one dropping right after this one, is the one you are not going to want to miss. Because there is a name I did not mention in this video, a name that has been quietly connected to both Papoose'S business dealings and the boxing promotion side of Claressa's Saturday card. A name that if I say it right now, the comment section will implode. And I am going to say that name in the very next upload, along with the paper trail, along with the timeline, along with the reason that name changes everything you thought you knew about who is actually pulling the strings on this entire production. So do not scroll. Do not close the app. The next one is the one that ends this whole story.